The Celtics are once again at the center of serious trade discussions, and this time the focus is very clear. Frontcourt depth, rim protection, financial flexibility. This is not noise, this is not fantasy, this is a real conversation gaining traction inside league circles. Boston knows it needs another center, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. Whether to compete for minutes with Neemias Queta or to protect the rotation deep into the postseason, the urgency is real and the margin for error is shrinking. Before we go any further, take a second to support the channel. Hit the like button, subscribe if you are not already part of this community, and click the hype button right now. That support matters and helps bring this kind of analysis to the surface when it counts most. Over the last 2 games, Luka Garza has shown flashes that demand attention. Energy, touch, presence. But there are still legitimate questions about his defensive reliability over extended minutes. Chris Boucher, meanwhile, has struggled to find a consistent role since the season began. When you put all of that together, the picture becomes clear. The Celtics need a reliable rim runner who understands his role and can deliver physicality without demanding touches. That is where a proposed 3-team trade enters the conversation. Jack Simone of Hardwood Houdini has outlined a scenario that deserves serious consideration. In this structure, the Celtics would receive Kyle Anderson and Nick Richards. Utah would take on Anthony Simons, Chris Boucher, and 2 second-round picks from Boston. Phoenix would land Georges Niang and 1 second-round pick, also via Boston. This proposal is not about star power. It is about balance, sustainability, and flexibility. From Boston's perspective, the financial implications are significant. The Celtics would shed approximately $15.8 million, dropping them below the luxury tax line with just enough room to breathe. That alone changes the entire strategic outlook for the front office. It also creates flexibility for the summer by reducing Simon's long-term salary burden. Kyle Anderson's contract is not guaranteed for the 2026-27 season, and he is set to earn just under $9.7 million. A manageable figure for a versatile wing. Nick Richards, 28 years old, has appeared in 24 games this season. His averages of 3.4 points and 3.3 rebounds do not jump off the page, but that is not the full story. Richards brings vertical spacing, consistent screening, physical rebounding, and an understanding of low-usage impact. These are qualities that translate in playoff environments, especially within a system that values discipline and execution. Kyle Anderson's presence would quietly strengthen the wing rotation. He gives Joe Matsula another playmaker, someone who can steady the second unit, read defenses, and create mismatches without forcing the offense. This is the type of player coaches trust when the game tightens and possessions matter more. But here is where the conversation truly sharpens. This entire deal hinges on one central question. Are the Celtics fully confident in Neemias Queta as their starting center moving forward? Because if the answer is yes, then Nick Richards becomes an ideal complementary piece. If the answer is uncertain, then Brad Stevens may be holding out for a bigger swing. A move with more upside and greater long-term impact. The front office is walking a fine line between present needs and future ambition. Every move now carries weight. Every dollar matters. Every rotation decision sends a message. And with the trade deadline approaching faster than it seems, the pressure is building inside the organization. So the real question is not whether Nick Richards fits the Celtics system. The question is far more urgent than that. Are the Celtics ready to commit to this version of their front court, or is this just the opening move before something much bigger breaks loose? Boston Celtics are approaching the trade deadline with pressure building and very little room for hesitation. February 5th is no longer a distant marker on the calendar. It is a real checkpoint that could define how this roster functions for the rest of the season. Brad Stevens already made difficult decisions during the summer, moving on from Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis and allowing Luke Kornet and Al Horford to walk in free agency. Those moves signaled a shift, not a rebuild, but a recalibration with clear priorities. The center position remains the loudest concern, but inside league conversations, guard depth has quietly entered the discussion, especially if Anthony Simons becomes a serious trade piece. When that door opens, the Celtics must be prepared with a clear alternative, someone who can step into the second unit and produce without disrupting the structure. This is where Ayo Dosunmu enters the picture. In a recent report by Sam Vecini of The Athletic, Dosunmu was identified as a logical and realistic trade target for Boston. Not a headline move, not a gamble, a calculated option. Dosunmu is on an expiring contract worth $7.5 million, which immediately places him in a category the front office monitors closely. Flexible, movable, and financially controlled, the numbers support the conversation. Dosunmu has shown real growth in Chicago. He is averaging over 15 points per game with elite efficiency, posting a true shooting percentage above 64%. Through 24 games this season, he is averaging 14.1 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 3 assists, while shooting over 51% from the field and nearly 46% from 3. Those are not empty stats. That is production within structure. Dosunmu was selected with the 38th pick in the 2021 draft and has been a steady presence in the Bulls' rotation ever since. He plays with pace, confidence, and defensive engagement. For Joe Mazzulla, that profile fits the demand of a second-unit guard who can score in bursts, defend his position, and stay within the system without hijacking possessions. But here is where the tension rises. The Celtics must weigh more than talent. They must weigh role clarity and timing. With Jason Tatum expected back in the rotation and Peyton Pritchard likely returning to the bench, minutes become a scarce resource. Boston is also unlikely to simply swap one expiring contract for another without a clear long-term benefit, and yet, the idea refuses to go away. If Simons is moved, the need becomes immediate. The efficiency, the age, the contract, all align too cleanly to ignore. The Celtics are operating in a narrow window where every move must solve two problems at once, on the court impact and financial responsibility. So the question that now hangs over the front office is unavoidable. If the Celtics decide they cannot risk a gap in guard production behind the starters, do they act decisively on a player like Ayo Dosunmu, or do they gamble that internal solutions will be enough when the pressure is highest? The Celtics are facing a growing problem that cannot be ignored any longer. Front court reliability. Physical presence, trust in playoff minutes. As the season progresses, it becomes increasingly clear that Boston is thin where it matters most, in the middle of the floor. Joe Mazzulla has not been convinced that Luka Garza can be trusted consistently, especially on the defensive end, and that hesitation is already reflected in the rotation. Outside of Neemias Queta, the Celtics simply do not have a dependable big body they can lean on when the game slows down and possessions become heavier. This is not about chasing upside or projecting development. This is about stability. This is about adding a player who understands contact, angles, screens, and positioning without demanding touches or minutes. When a team with championship aspirations lacks that kind of presence, the front office has no choice but to scan the trade market with urgency and precision. That is why Kevin Looney has quietly emerged as a name worth serious attention. According to Jack Simon of Hardwood Houdini, Looney represents a low-risk and highly logical option for the Celtics. He becomes trade eligible on December 15th, and his situation in New Orleans raises important questions. Despite signing with the Pelicans during the offseason, Looney has appeared in just 12 games and has struggled to carve out a consistent role. That lack of playing time is not about ability. It is about fit and opportunity. Looney is a two-time NBA champion, a player shaped by deep postseason runs and high-pressure environments. His value has never been about scoring. It has always been about the details. Solid screens that free shooters, rebounding that ends possessions, defensive awareness that keeps the system intact. At 6'9", he does not solve every size issue Boston faces, but he compensates with strength, positioning, and experience. Last season with Golden State, Looney averaged 4.5 points and 6.1 rebounds while shooting over 51% from the field. Across his career, he has consistently shown the ability to make smart passing reads, averaging 1.6 assists per game. These are quiet contributions, but they are the exact type of contributions that elevate second units and stabilize rotations. From a financial standpoint, the appeal becomes even stronger. Simon points out that adding Looney could help the Celtics trim payroll and create flexibility heading into the summer. That matters. Every move Boston makes now must serve both the present and the future. Looney checks that box without forcing a long-term commitment. Convincing the Pelicans to move a recently acquired big man will not be easy. There will be internal hesitation. There will be negotiation. But the Celtics cannot afford to wait passively. The need is real, the window is tight, and experienced big men with championship pedigree are not widely available. And that brings us to the most pressing question of all. With the playoffs looming and the margins getting thinner by the week, can the Celtics really afford to ignore a proven, physical, battle-tested center like Kevin Looney? Or will hesitation once again cost them when it matters most? If you want to stay ahead of every development like this, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and click the hype button right now. The next move Boston makes could change everything.